Welcome back for this 3 o'clock session on cybersecurity. Just very quickly, the last sessions that we had 3 tracks. There were almost 400 people, actually one of them there was over 400 people in each of those 3 tracks. So that's really an amazing turnout, and it just shows the interest that this conference is generating. My next moderator is Mr. Pascal Steichen, who is the CEO of Security Made in Luxembourg, or SMILE, as we call it as an acronym. Pascal has a master's in astrophysics. He was part of the project for LuxTrust, which is the digital identity solution, national solution, and he was a board member at ENISA for the first 10 years. And today he's going to be talking about European digital innovation hubs and cybersecurity. Pascal.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me for this, moderating this session about cybersecurity, which is, I would say, the topic I'm working in since many years. And especially in relation to the European digital innovation hubs, because in digital, but also in cybersecurity, I would say innovation is a key element. And we have 3 distinguished panelists and speakers who will give us some insights into that topic. To, I would say, concretely structure the European Digital Innovation Network and activities around this key topic of cybersecurity. So first we will have a little perspective from the European Commission, from Mr. Jean-François Junger. Then we'll look into the Luxembourg strategy, so give an outlook how Luxembourg is addressing innovation, research innovation, so the link between these and how I would say the results from research flow into the market, from Professor Dr. Björn Ottersten. And last but certainly not least, a concrete example of how in the EU collaboration between key cyber valleys, as they are called, can work, how this collaboration, how this harmonization and working together to create a common European innovation and clear goals for Europe in cybersecurity can be done. This by Dr. Danilo Delia from the Exxon Association, which is participating today. So dear speakers, dear panelists, allow me to start with Jean-François Junger. He's, after 10 years of work as a robotic engineer and active in fusion research, Jean-François joined the European Commission through the Directorate General Research first, then after moving to the Information Society Director General, where he was in charge of a topic which I am really fond of, is open source software. And through his career, he went through different initiatives that really focus on developing public services, like, for instance, the Connecting European Facilities, or the e-government action plan, where he played an active role. Since July 2018 and today, Jean-François is Deputy Head of Unit for the European Cybersecurity Capacity, which is and particularly involved into the Digital Europe program preparation we are all waiting for. Jean-François, the floor is yours.
Yes, good afternoon. I do hope you hear me well. It's a pleasure to participate in this event, even though we all have to stay at home, and it's a bit of a pity we cannot be in the same room and have a more physical interactions. Today we see that the digital transformation that the crisis has speed up dramatically. It shows our dependencies on all the digital technology and how cybersecurity, it's an element that needs to be taken on board, needs to be addressed to make sure that all the benefit of this digital transformation take place. And in that context, even though cybersecurity, formally speaking, it's of the responsibility of the member states, it is clear that Europe needs to work and needs to get the member states to work together in order to guarantee the security of all European citizens and to guarantee the European way of living. And in that context, the Commission has published, at the end of last year, a new strategy. That strategy is developed around 4 different pillars. It's about guaranteeing, first of all, the security and the foolproof security of our environment, to guarantee that whatever happened today or whatever will happen in the future, we are in a position to react and to protect our values, but protect also our infrastructure, protect our economy. We also need to make sure that we are getting ready for any kinds of evolving threats and the new threats that are coming up due to technology, but also due to change of behavior of those who are creating threats for the Europe. The third priority is to guarantee the protection against terrorism, against organized crime. That's a classical activity where the Union is working on with the member states. And lastly, is to create a very strong European security ecosystem, meaning we must have all the capacity inside the European Union to protect ourselves. What it means, for instance, for DG Connect, we will revise the NIS directive for the protection of the critical infrastructure, creating more responsibility, enlarging the domain of application of the regulation, and pushing member states to work even more together to defend together the European Union. What we have in parallel to this also, if we go to the next slide, developed different instruments and financial instruments. So Horizon Europe is the one that you are quite familiar, where we intend to make sure that we develop the security for all the devices, all the different technology that will come up, develop and use new technology such as AI and how AI can help to address cybersecurity. In parallel to the cybersecurity, you also have the issue of the privacy, to make sure that the data are properly protected, that your privacy is respected. And lastly, and certainly not least, of the key topics we intend to develop, it's to make sure that the encryption mechanisms we have are foolproof for the future, and in particular foolproof against the quantum technology, the quantum computer that's coming up, which foresee the capacity to decrypt data according to using the current technology. In the Digital Euro program, we also intend to do activity in the cybersecurity. It's a third pillar of the program, where, first of all, we want to make sure that we deploy the infrastructure we need. Example of infrastructure we are considering to develop is a quantum communication infrastructure to make sure that data can be transferred in a secured way, that it cannot be tampered without our knowledge. Another, the second domain where we intend to work with the member state is to make sure that we work together. In particular, develop together cyber ranges where the different users, also providers of technologies, will be able to test, validate, get the skills needed to secure their equipment, their company, but also via the SOCs to create with the member states a network of centers who are going to monitor the network so we can anticipate threat, we can anticipate attacks and protect ourselves sooner rather than late. The third domain where we intend to work is also to implement different legislation, NIS Directive, Cybersecurity Act, but also the Competence Center, and I will explain a little bit more about the Competence Center a bit later. Here, a lot is related to what we have been doing today under the CEF, where we intend to continue to develop what we are doing there. The last one, and certainly very importantly for the digital innovation hubs and the SMEs they're going to try to help, we intend to support new actors to bring their solution faster to the market. Whether it is providers of equipment for the 5G, whether it is equipment and protection of the health sector, but it's also when it comes to any kinds of innovative solution that could have a very strong added value in order to protect our infrastructure. So as I explained, around here we have the activity, the regulation for the creation of the European Cybersecurity Competence Center. If we go to the next slide. What the Commission has proposed 2 years ago was the creation of a center for the Member States and the Union to work together, to develop together ideas of investments, whether in the research, whether in the deployment and the implementation, and to invest together. The aim is really to try as much as possible to coordinate the different investment channels we have in the European Union, to facilitate the actors and the stakeholders and the European cybersecurity industry to receive the support and to see their solution brought to the market and to see them implemented. I haven't seen the next slide, but you might want to go to the next slide. What we want with the center is to, with 2 seconds. The regulation has reached an agreement between the Parliament and the Council end of last year. Now we are in the process of setting it up. It will be set up in Bucharest. That's where member states have decided to implement it. Once set up, it will take over the management of the different program. It will also take over the community that the regulation foresee and the network that the regulation foresee. The regulation will create not only a European Competence Center, but also at national level, a national coordination center in charge of coordinating what's happening at the national level in the cybersecurity domain, and to bring that in knowledge to the level of the European Union and to develop with the other member states solutions. So the digital innovation hubs in that context will have an important role, because in that network that we are creating with the regulation, the European Union is discussing with the member states directly. The member states, through their national coordination center and through the digital innovation hubs, will have the capacity to interact with their actors at regional and local level. Digital innovation hubs will have a very important role to make sure that while they're assisting SMEs to develop, to become more digital, use better digital, they will also need to make sure that they are aware of all the cybersecurity threats they have, to make sure that they address them before they are under attack, and to make sure that they are also aware of the different other funding opportunities that might exist, or solutions that we are being promoting and developing with the member states and with the SMEs and with the different actors, so that they can integrate it. So, to conclude, if you can see that cybersecurity is really at the heart of the digital transformation we see in Europe. We, with the European Union, with the member states, we have developed now this structure and this way of working together, which we will implement. It will take something like 18 months to get fully into shape, but we are working and it will slowly come into practice. Today, we will need to work with the digital innovation hubs already in order to make sure that the digital transformation is done safely in order to get the best benefit out of the technologies. I think I will stop here for my introduction speech. I think I have been already a little bit long. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean-François. As you say, cybersecurity is key and important in the European digital society, digitalization, and it's the same for Luxembourg as well. That's why we have today Professor Dr. Björn Ottersten, who is founding director of the SNT, which is the Interdisciplinary Center for Cybersecurity, Reliability and Trust at the University of Luxembourg, created in 2009 as one of the first of these interdisciplinary centers of the university, showing clearly the key importance of cybersecurity in Luxembourg and at the university. Björn started his career in Sweden as an electrical engineer, and then went to United States, to Stanford, to do his PhD in the area of signal processing, where he was appointed professor at the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm after a few years. While throughout his career, he has some significant contributions to the area of signal processing, wireless communication, radar, and computer vision. Especially, he got twice the very prestigious European Research Council Advanced Research Grant, and very proud of him as a Luxembourger. He is the digital champion of Luxembourg, advising the European Commission on behalf of Luxembourg. Björn, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Pascal. It's my pleasure to join you at this event. We'll see if we have an opportunity. I prepared some slides also. Thank you for that. Coming from an academic institution, I want to talk a bit about research linked to innovations. I mean, innovations is a multifaceted area, of course, and I will focus on this aspect. In Europe and in the member states, we invest heavily into research, and we are often not happy with the way that it's linked to innovations. We think that we could be more efficient and better to create innovations from the tremendous investments into research that are done. I'd like to describe a bit how we operate as a digital innovation hub in this region to try to be more efficient in linking research to innovations. You can go to the next slide. Exactly, and we can move on to the next one as well. I mean, this is a traditional way of looking at research. Fundamental research is a way of creating knowledge. We build on previous results to increase our knowledge space. We often talk about researcher-initiated activities, blue sky research, curiosity-driven, and so on. It's often long-term, high risk. Can go on to the next slide. And often in Europe, we structure our organizations according to this model. So we have academic institutions conducting long-term fundamental research. We create research institutions, RTOs, to do applied in research, and then we create innovation agencies who are supposed to bring these into practice and into exploitation. And there are different actors doing different parts in this. We can go to the next slide. And then often we have different types of instruments to support the activities. These are often public instruments where we put public funding into these different parts. We can go to the next slide. And I claim there's something wrong with this picture, and that's perhaps one of the reasons why we're not so efficient in translating our investments into long-term research into innovations. Can go on, because when we, if you go to the next, yes, we create barriers. This is not an easy process in itself, bringing research results into exploitation, and by creating different institutions, we naturally create barriers, which makes it less efficient. And also, perhaps very importantly, is it's not a one-way process. It's not a linear process. This is a highly complex, interactive process. And we should not forget the feedback we get by tackling practical problems and solving real-world problems in inspiring the long-term work we do. This is absolutely necessary if we want to keep the relevance in the research problems that we tackle. You can go to the next picture. And this I try to illustrate here, this interaction. And I believe what we need to do is avoid this institutionalization, as I call it, of research and innovations, and rather try to build structures where we build on the synergies between the demand-driven and the researcher-initiated research, and do this by removing the barriers and doing it under one roof. And that's a bit the model that we have tried to work with in Luxembourg to make research relevant for innovations, especially in digital technologies. I think this is perhaps easiest to achieve in the digital technologies because it's a fast-moving, there's a high pace in the development where the time scales are not that large perhaps as in other areas. Can go on. So this is our vision in the institution that I head is to not compromise on the scientific excellence of the work. This is absolutely necessary for us to be a competent research partner, but to try and play an instrumental role in bringing the results into socioeconomic impact and also interact with private partners to increase the R&D investments into this area. Can go on. And I want to talk, just mention a few words about one of the key instruments to achieve this is the model of collaborative research. And we do this within our partnership program. You can go to the next slide. And this way we can span a large range of the so-called technology readiness levels from very basic activities up until validation and testing in real environments and with real data. This is also what gives the very, very interesting and important experiences that feed back into the long-term activity. I believe it's critical also to have scientists that work at all these different levels and not to divide up the process. We can go on to the next slide. This illustrates a bit our strategic research areas. Cybersecurity, as you see, is one of the critical ones, but we apply digital technologies to a number of different areas as well. And the partnership builds on collaborative research, which is long-term agreements where private actors put resources into projects together with us, forming public-private partnerships, ensuring the relevance of the activity, but also the impact. Can go on. And we can go to the next one as well. I'm going to give just a few examples to illustrate what we do. This is a project with a startup in Luxembourg trying to monetize off of genomic data sequencing. Hand in hand with security is also the notion of privacy, as we just heard from the previous speaker. And here the idea is to, this is a heavily regulated field, is to codify the regulation and the service contracts in place to ensure that the data is used as is contractually agreed, and still being able to have multiple stakeholders monetizing and build services on top of the genomic information. We can go to the next slide. This is another case of, in a completely different field in the financial service industry, which is also a heavily regulated sector. Cybersecurity is of key importance there as well. Can we go to the next slide? And there we're developing using requirements engineering methodology to codify requirements, which, in this case, which are regulations to meet the standards of security, for example. This will bring automation into the compliance area, which is today a very, very manual process and therefore also susceptible to faults and errors, also causing vulnerabilities in the system. And finally, just an example, working on more an international scale with Intel to create secure computation platforms. This is absolutely key, especially in critical infrastructures where you have to be able, to the lowest levels, secure that computations are conducted in a secure and trustworthy fashion. Okay, we can move ahead. I'll just wrap up there, saying that we're a team of some 350 people and try to work officially as a digital innovation hub in the region here to bring the research into innovations. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Björn, for this view on the Luxembourg strategy in research innovation. What I especially liked is the fact that your partnership program involves big companies, small companies, even startups. So really a very interesting mix of all typical elements of an economy. Let's move forward to our third speaker in the round, Dr. Danilo Delia. He is Senior Policy Manager at the European Cybersecurity Organization, Exxon, which is an association of European cybersecurity actors and really, I would say, the spokesperson of this market to the Commission. Danilo himself works on issues like market analysis, investment promotion, competitiveness, scaling, so really the economic aspects in cybersecurity, especially focusing also on startups and SMEs, as well as regional cooperation initiatives. He comes from the economic side of the world with a master's degree in economics and a PhD in geopolitics. Danilo, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Pascal, for the introduction. And also a warm thanks to Lux Innovation for the invitation to this very important session on cybersecurity digital innovation apps. So my goals today is to share with you a very short history of what are the cyber valleys in Europe. So if you can start with the first slide to sum up what is Exxon and where are the regions and the SMEs in the broader context of this European association with the European community, federating all the stakeholders around cybersecurity. So starting from startups, SMEs, going to the end users, but also bringing around the table the national authorities, including the regional bodies like regions, clusters, association, and as well investors. So we are quite proud within Exxon because the definition of our association is not a lobbying organization with the aim to defend one specific aspect of the market, but really to bring all the stakeholders together and to federate the community around what we think to be the one important aspect of the European sovereignty, the cybersecurity ecosystem. So if we can go also in the next slide, Science 2017, so the next one, sorry, Pascal. So Science 2017, within Exxon, we have been consolidated, structured an approach to cybersecurity based on the regional activities. So we strongly believe in Exxon that cybersecurity is, of course, a sovereignty issue, but it's not only a sovereignty issue. It's really linked to the competitiveness of our society, of our economics. And so for this reason, the regions are playing a key role in order to be closer to the citizen, to the SMEs, and as well to the importance role of the local clusters. So if it's possible to move to the next slide. So just since 2017, we have been mapping the European ecosystem through the regional entities. So we started with a very few regions, and then we have been growing to now 20 regions that are interesting and that are mature with a strong ecosystem specialized in cybersecurity, and then through the support of different transversal support by DG Grow, DG Connect, DG RTD, the GRC, we have been developing our approach that now today is named the Cybersecurity Valleys under the Smart Specialization Platform. And there we decided to tackle two main challenges. The first one is to understand the value chain of cybersecurity. It has been a key important aspect to understand. So once we understand where are the cybersecurity ecosystem, it was very important to speak the same language. For this reason, we agree on the same taxonomy, and then we have been mapping the ecosystem based on this methodology. The second aspect, so building up on the result of this taxonomy and the mapping exercise, has been also to understand the challenges for the SMEs, also for the scale-ups that that are successful at the local level, but then they are struggling to reach the position to compete at the European level and the global level. For this reason, we have been working, we are still working with important entities within the European framework, so in particular with the AB, our colleagues with DG Connect, DG Grow, in order to understand how to support them, and we believe that the digital innovation apps will be a key and important stakeholder to support this strategy, so that the regions and the digital innovation apps, there are the actors that could be really to support the growing phase of our very competitive SMEs. We had also the chance, thanks to the tough scheme supported by DG Grow, to test it on a very specific business case, and I'm very happy that Jean-François is mentioning cyber ranges in his presentation, because we have been working through three regions on a dedicated business model for a federated approach to cyber range. And now the plans for the future is really to scale on this result and to bring the community together to work on the defragmentation of the market, because the key challenges that Europe need to face today is not the lack of skills or capabilities, but more, I'll say, the fragmentation of the market that is still really local, with sometimes national regulations. And so the digital innovation apps and the regions will play their role to defragment this market. Next slide, please. Here, just an example of what has been an important deliverable. So the mapping, because the mapping based on 5 ecosystems, including the Luxembourg one, it has been very important because it has been the opportunity to demonstrate how regions very far each other, they can work together and they can speak the same languages in order to develop a business opportunity. If it's possible, then I would like to move to the last slide about the opportunities, in order also then to launch the debate. What we would like to do within Exxon and through the support of our partners, so the Luxembourg is one, the entire activities led by the Brittany regions and their partners with Image et Réseau, together with these 15 regions across Europe. The idea is to continue our work of federation of a regional ecosystem, federation of digital hub, and the leverage on this really concrete activities that we have been developing under the framework of Exxon and the Cyber Valley Smart Specialization Platform. These services that are very linked to the ones that the digital innovation apps are going to provide to their local ecosystems. In particular, I can think about the investor days, so how to access the finance, and then to support the SMEs. I can think about the training and education activities. The idea is to really develop a skill platform to facilitate the interaction between the different digital innovation apps. And then last but not least, also the acceleration program. So really how to facilitate the move and also the access to market from one region to the other regions. And likely also what has been very important during the speeches today, how this cross-fertilization, so how the digital innovation apps specialized in cybersecurity could contribute to increase the level of cybersecurity readiness of other ecosystems specialized in manufacturing, robotics, agri-food even. And so at the end, to facilitate the entire Europe to rise the level of cybersecurity. So today we are opening the call for joining this network to all the regional ecosystem and digital innovation apps that would like to contribute to this open discussion. And once again, I would like really to thank you, the organizer, for this challenging conference, bringing the all stakeholders on this important topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Danilo, and thank you also for especially mentioning the different, I would say, opportunities and especially synergies that exist between these different initiatives that we heard from now, the Cyber Valley initiative that you mentioned, the new Cybersecurity Competence Center network, the EDIH network. So I would say three very complementary initiatives in that sense, and especially all of them, I would say, have a strong cybersecurity component. So to all the speakers, let's close this discussion with, I would say, one key question we would like to hear from the audience side. So what are for you the key challenges that these, I would say, three networks, the EDIH, the Competence Center network, and as well as the Cyber Valley initiative or network, what are the key challenges that they need to address, focus, and where do you see synergies between these different networks? Let's start with Jean-François, maybe.
Yeah, if you want. Let's say one of the big issue will be for each of the actors to understand exactly its role within the whole ecosystem and within the whole structure we are setting up. As the regulation on the creation of the European Competence Center and network, and the member states are setting up their own national coordination center, we still have to think and to make sure we understand each other. But then within that concept, everybody else will be able to find its way. Hopefully, we should have clearer idea within the next 6 months. We will have the regulation entering into force. The Competence Center will slowly get its position. And the member states are at the moment discussing with us, discussing between them how to organize their national coordination center. Once all this becomes clear, I think everybody will understand better.
Okay, thank you. Björn, you are involved in the Luxembourg Digital Innovation Hub from the Luxembourg side. How do you see these synergies being created, or what would be the challenges that you see coming for the future?
Yes, so I described a bit what was happening on the local level here. What I didn't talk much about was the international or European level. We were active participating in 3 of these cybersecurity competence networks. And this is a way for us to leverage the international dimension. In a research setting, it's absolutely natural to collaborate at the international level. And then to be able to also translate that into competitiveness regional level is very interesting for us. And I think there's much we can do as well in exposing also regional actors to this European dimension as well, both in terms of finding competences, but also in terms of supporting innovations with investments in capital. So on there, I think we must work to really create more of a common market, and that's the only way for us to remain competitive at the European level.
Okay, thank you. Thank you that also you mentioned the 4 pilot projects, and you said that SNT and Luxembourg, and we are very proud of us, is part of 3 of the 4 pilot projects. Which are key and which are, I would say, preparing this European Competence Center network. Maybe Jean-François, a question in between. How will the results of the pilot projects I would say, bring value, or how will this be integrated into the center in Romania and the national coordination centers? Do you already have some insights about this? Sorry.
So the 4 pilots are really key in preparing this activity. This is why we have launched those pilots now a couple of years ago. They're helping us to organize a community, but also to test the different ways the network could work. We are in, I would say, nearly weekly, if not more, contact with the 4 pilots. We try to coordinate them and to bring the best essence out of which. We're working with the member states, with the National Coordination Center, and the actors who are setting up, and the pilots. So we are really at the moment in very, very close contact also with the Exxon to make sure that we will very quickly have a structure that will enable to create, first of all, the ambition of the strategy, the cybersecurity strategy we have, but also to enable the creation of a strong European industry, which is one of the key elements we have.
Thank you, Jean-François. So Danilo, Exo, I would say the core business of Exo is creating synergies, doing collaboration. You mentioned already a few elements. What would be your key challenges for the future for Exo and all this coordination between these different networks?
Thank you, Pascal. I would say, I will not call it challenges, but I see a huge opportunity for the Europe and the European ecosystem. And the tools that Europe is providing to the local ecosystem, the digital innovation apps, should be taken at this stage as a really an opportunity to then, defragment the market. So I really believe that the continuation of what was already done on the previous years and the previous financial framework, it will be very important. And of course, the European Union, the member states, they can count on the input from the regions and what is coming out from the regional ecosystem, because at the end the innovation is there in the territories, SMEs, startups are there, and so we know very well then it's also a matter of investment. Investors are really keen to go to scout at the local level. So on my side, I will say the key challenge is to really remain this defragmentation of the market, but I remain very positive on the digital innovation apps through the local ecosystem. It will be a very good tool for Europe.
Thank you, Danilo. We have 5 minutes more, maybe taking some questions from the audience, if there are.
Yes, indeed. Hello, everybody. First, Pascal, allow me to say that in the chat there is quite some activities regarding EDIH or candidate EDIH sharing their experience and sharing who you are. I have to admit that I see in the chat that Belgium and specifically Wallonia is quite active. So allow me, Pascal, to say hi to our Belgium neighbors and friends just there. In terms of Q&A, well, the most asked is about if you can have the presentations, and of course it's going to be uploaded in this section afterwards. But I would go immediately to the next one, which is for you to answer, which is about the associated country. So will the associated country be eligible to participate in cybersecurity activities run by the Competence Center?
That's a pretty good question. Jean-François, maybe? Do you have an insight about that?
The Competence Center will, the implementation of the program will obey to the rules defined by Horizon and the Digital Europe program. So there are certain specificity and some rules under which they can participate. Of course, there is this clause that for security reason, we could limit the scope of the calls to European member states exclusively. This will be defined in the work program. At the moment, nothing has been set yet in stone. There are also big discussions related to the associated states and their participation in the Competence Center. This today has not yet been closed completely.
Okay, one more question.
Certainly, there is one which is getting up, which is about how will the data ownership be regulated on EU level? when it comes to different EDIH activities. And the one who asks the questions, Oleksky Guzav, I hope I pronounced it correctly. He asked if you can turn your reply more specifically in the ag-tech food production domains.
Okay. Anyone willing to take that question?
On data ownership.
That's for me to say.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Well, if the panel is struggling with this one, maybe I can ask another one. Apparently, there have been one of your quotes that has been raised a concern regarding avoid institutionalizations of research and innovation process. And the question comes from Lothar Otz. Can you please elaborate on what you mean by avoid institutionalization of research and innovation processes? There are universities, research institutions, transfer centers around. Should those be avoided somehow?
Björn, that was your quote.
Sure,
go ahead.
sure. No, I mean, this is perhaps controversial in some domains, but if we're not performing according to expectations in Europe, then we have to look at what can be done. So, and in my view, these creating borders in the innovation process from research to more demand-driven apply is one of the things we could address. And it doesn't mean closing down this, it means broadening the scope of some of the activities of these institutions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Björn. Thank you, Jean-François. Thank you, Danilo. Thank you to all the audience listening to this session. I think one key element here is that cybersecurity is a key element, is a key aspect of digitization, of the future digital innovation hubs, and the other networks that are being built at the moment around this topic of cybersecurity. And just getting back to the quote of Björn, I think key here is to make things, I would say, to simplify things, to make sure that I would say that we have really created value especially for cybersecurity, for our society, and not breaking anything that is working fine today. Thank you very much.
Back to David.
And I go back to David for the global moderation.
Thank you so much, Pascal. That was very insightful, as usual. I mean, cybersecurity is something that we used to overlook, but I think it's one of our top subjects now. So here we are again outside. This is our penultimate little walk around, and I just want to show you a sign that's just here, right? That pretty much sums up this area. It says University Culture, Ecology, Loisir, which is downtime, I guess, housing, mobility, shopping, and work. That's pretty much what this place is. If you have a look over here, that big tall building is the Ministry of the Environment. This big old building we've just come out of, that's the House of Innovation. That's where our studios are, and the showroom that we saw this morning is just at the bottom. This area here kind of delimits the place between, you know, working and the place where it's a place to have fun. So what we see here is the old steel works. So the smelted steel used to go in through here. You can see a sign up there. I don't know if you can read it. It says Polworth, Luxembourg, 1977, with a charge of, it can take a weight of 25 tons. So that's where we have the blast furnace, which is behind. It pours in the melted ore into one of these things. I'm sorry if you're getting some wind feedback on the microphone again. And then that goes into there, and then they pour out the big old iron girders. If we look around here, this is a big old shopping center with
cinema and whatever you need into it. It's very student oriented. And this, with a bit of luck, is where we're going to go for our final walkabout just before our last session of the day. This is the Rock Hall, 6,000 people. I've seen some fantastic shows in there. Things like Sting, Slipknot, Mariah Carey, but I'm not going to own up to that. And I was never there for that one. I just want to show you something really quickly before we take our last little, or penultimate little break. This is our national identity, the X. Make it happen for Luxembourg. And I just want to show you this. This is quite interesting. So this is side of one of the blast furnace. And just keep in mind the shape of these ladders at the top of it. And bear in mind, it's 10 to 4. For those of you who think this is all pre-registered or pre-recorded, then please drop me a question for the next walkabout and I will answer it. They've actually got me running around town. Have a look at this building here. I don't know if you can see it very well. You can see the shadow of what we just walked through. Bearing in mind that there is no sun, right? So that on there is the shadow that's being cast by this. It's actually been painted on. Now that's a bit of art for you. I'm sure there's a reason behind it, and I don't want to criticize it, but okay, I think you understand that. Here we go. Here's our last look at the blast furnace, because we won't be looking at this again today. Our next runabout will be towards the Rock Hall. We're going to sign off now and come back at 1600, so 4 p.m. And we will be talking about artificial intelligence. So see you back at 4 p.m.